Welcome. This is Simran Singh in the 1111 Interviews TV. I'm thrilled to have you today. I'm excited to have this conversation because this is probably one of my favorite people in the world. I love her work. I love her books. I love everything that she's doing right now. And it's exciting because she's giving people the opportunity to become empowered and tap into their amazing gifts, their leadership, and their own personal visions for their life. Colette Baron-Reid is an internationally renowned intuitive counselor, educator, and #1 best-selling author who helps others recognize and connect with their own intuition, potential, and purpose. A powerful motivational speaker, charismatic broadcast personality, and acclaimed performer, storyteller, and recording artist, Colette uses her extraordinary spiritual gifts to empower her clients to live a life that is awake and authentic, and to create a reality that is spiritual, deliberate, and meaningful. I had Colette on my radio show, and we discussed her wonderful best-selling book entitled The Map, and it is really a wonderful guide for people to understand where their life has come from, why it is the way it is, and where it can go, and how they have the ability to really empower themselves and understand their journey so that they can leap forward from that and do some incredible things. From this, she has created an incredible coaching institute, and we're going to talk a lot about that today because some of the components of that I think are really quite exciting. She talks about wealth, and she talks about divination and weight release and all these different things that affect all parts of our lives, like relationships and money and everything that affects each one of us. So it's going to be an exciting conversation, and I'm thrilled to have her. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Colette Baron-Reid to 1111 Interviews. Welcome, Colette.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's such a beautiful day. Finally, too, we had this amazing weather. It was like 80 degrees here, and then it got really cold again. So today's the first sunny day. What a perfect day to be on your show.
Well, I'm always excited to talk to you because we have great conversations, and you really, I feel very aligned with the way that you think and how you portray your message and what you're out there to teach people. And the map itself is a bestseller. You've had several bestsellers, including another book, which is Messages from Spirit, which has to do with looking at signs and oracles and different things like that. And all of that really led into a fantastic new coaching program, which you have launched in 2012. Before we get into that, I want people, if they haven't gotten the map and read it, I want to talk a little bit about that so they go out and get that book. Because number one, that's a first great step on your own journey to discovery. So
Thank you.
Talk a little bit about the map.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. If you had told me that I'd be doing this 5 years ago, I would be like, "Are you kidding me?" I had no interest whatsoever in creating a coaching institute. I even told one of my friends who has a coaching institute, "I'm never going to do that." And now, of course, I'm doing it. It was just this natural evolution out of what happened with this book and the process of creating the book, because the coaching program is actually based on my book, The Map, which, by the way, is in 22 languages now. So I'm going to Sweden and Germany and Holland at the end of the year to do some teaching there. So, what I'm using is a template of self-discovery that and integration that is quite rapid, that uses the archetypes, universal archetypes of landscapes rather than in the hero's journey, rather than the archetypes of persona, which is, a lot of people have talked about already, and Sacred Contracts, Carolyn Mays, Robert Ohotto. There's a lot of teachers who are well versed in the archetypal experience of the persona. So rather than, I take a completely different perspective. Like, rather than seeing yourself as a warrior, I'm asking you to envision a battlefield. And when you see through the eyes of the witness or the observer, it completely neutralizes any kind of anxious or stressful set of circumstances, because they're all internal. Like, your reactivity is what dictates how you're going to experience any external condition. It's not the conditions that dictate your experience. It's your internal dialogue that does. And, you know, most people know me as an intuitive or psychic, or so they expect me to be that person. But there's so much more to me. And I realized that when I was at Hay House, that I have 23 years of experience of really having a firsthand connection to human nature by route of the fact that I've read over 33,000 people. But I've also studied Jung, and I'm fascinated with the concepts of synchronicity and and how the greater mind operates, and how we create our reality through our internal world as opposed to the external world of conditions. And that's not new, but I've created a new version of this that I workshopped for 3 years before the book was published. So I tested out my theories and saw just how deeply and incredibly powerful and deeply transformational this process was. So I actually trademarked the process. It's called Envision, and it's based on 3 questions.
Before you get into that part of it, Colette, I want to back up a little bit, because some people might not get what the whole landscape thing is about. And are we talking about an internal landscape? Are we talking about certain circumstances? Are we talking about our backyard? Talk a little bit about the landscape.
Yes. So if you ask yourself, where am I? This is the best way. It's one of the three questions I was moving into to explain what the landscape is where am I? So we go inside and we say, what is a representation of this state of mind? And we use landscape archetypes to describe that. So in every human being, it is knowledge, because we are part of humanity, of the planet. And we know what a desert is, we know what green grass is, we know what our world looks like, but we've lost our connection to that. So the indigenous peoples believe that the world of nature has a soul. So our lack of connection to that was something that I was thinking about, going, well, what if we describe the environment of our mind, because we live in the environment of our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Much more, 95% of it is mental. It's mental, emotional. That's where we are. We're only 5%. That's what science has proven now. 5% is reality, is what we see. So 95% of it is in here. And if we live in the environment of our minds, why not use environmental metaphors and archetypes to describe where we are at any given moment?
Absolutely.
So that's what the landscape means. And no one has ever written about that. I thought perhaps I would have found somebody who'd written about this before. So I bought all these books. I have this stack of books on eco-spirituality and psychoecology and bio blah blah. And I was like, somebody please tell me if anybody. I realized the only peoples that have ever really described the world of nature in such a way that it is alive were indigenous peoples. So, but I wanted to make it very user-friendly. And I'm kind of an alchemist. I like to take, ideas and mush them together and see if they work differently. And I had this big epiphany, because I could get out of myself so quickly if I say, where am I right now? And so the next piece of that is, well, how do we know what that is? Do we use creative visualization? Because one would assume that you have to use your imagination, because the imagination and intuition are your 2 greatest tools for manifesting your own world. And so, sorry, I'm fidgeting. I forgot I'm on a camera. I'm so used to my radio show. I could just hang out and do whatever. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, so
it's real. It's real.
It's real. It's really a camera. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So the idea of a state of mind. So if we go in, if I describe where I'm at, so I say, where am I right now? And I could look through the eyes of the observer and then quickly describe my state of mind as it is. Let's say I'm feeling really stuck. Oh, I'm in a swamp and I see monkeys. And well, where do those pictures come from? Well, this is the Jungian technique of active imagination that is very different than creative visualization. It's when you allow the unconscious to show you its language, or the subconscious. There's always a bit of issue around the languaging, but the bottom line is that there is a greater mind that is not accessible by the thinking mind, which we think is the greatest mind, but it isn't. Our thinking mind is only a very small percentage of any real power over our lives. It's what we are programmed to believe and accept, etc. in our subconscious. And then, of course, the unconscious is the dreamscapes. So when you get those 2 parts of your mind speaking to you, it doesn't speak English. It speaks pictures. So that's that metaphoric, symbolic language of imagery that every human being has access to. So when you allow the pictures to come, and they always will, you're never without knowing what's happening when you say, where am I? And then just allow your mind to show you. So I may be in a dry spell, and all of a sudden I'm in the desert. And what I ask you to do very quickly is to use what you know about the outer world, like what thrives in the desert, what could the desert mean, what's the soul of the desert. So less than 3 minutes when you can ask these kind of leading questions that I have, and then you allow your imagination to actively show you what you cannot see in your thinking mind. You're immediately transported into a very neutral, observant space, which is really the space of the soul. It is non-judgmental. It's neutral. It has great power. It has compassion. It has a very, very different emotional charge than if you were, say, all stressed out about something. And because fear is like a virus now, this process can get you out of that like this, just like that. Mm-hmm. And then you're able to discern and make choices based on a more neutral point of vantage rather than the reactivity of being in the emotional mire when you're in it, or even in the thought mire, which is the obsessive thinking. It helps get out of obsessive thinking. It's quite an interesting creative way to do this. So once
it sounds like you're very much bringing people back into the inner universe, which is so much greater than our outside world, and we're able to then tap into so much more that we can trust and that we can know and that we can connect to. Because right now, even when we get caught up in those loops of thought and that worry and all those things that are outside, we're so disconnected from our body and ourselves that we can't even make the appropriate decisions that are going to serve us in the highest way. So this is connecting us to greater intuition along with greater understanding of ourselves, is what it sounds like.
100%. It is an intuitive process. It's a fully right brain process. It gets you completely out of the logic and calculating mind. We completely bypass the left brain and go right into the right brain. I've even got these pretty amazing recordings that help stimulate that too for people when they work with my material, which I have this binaural beats that bring you into the alpha or the theta state. So that's a whole other story. But I have found this technology and created it, and trademarked it, and now I'm teaching it to people so that they can use it with clients. So my whole institute came out of this. And the other thing is too is that it's not for everybody. This is for people who are interested in the creative way of looking at life. This is not your typical coach technology. This is something very unique and different. If people like Jung, or if they like Women Who Run with the Wolves, if they like storytelling, we create stories around people's lives in order for them to see themselves differently so that they can have their epiphanies rapidly. We are midwives for epiphanies.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like that. So the trademark process is called Envision. And yeah. It does allow people to access that intuitive ability. Is there a prerequisite for the type of person that should do this, or in terms of do all of us have the ability to become the intuitive coach that you're talking about?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So anyone can read my book and do the exercises in my book. Okay, so that because I describe it all in the book. But like right now, the Institute started in January. So we are looking for very specific types of people who are coming to me to be trained because they're representing me. And plus, my coaching institute is a community where we support the coaches as well with their client referrals. And, so they're going to be listed on my website. So we have a screening process when people come to us and want to sign up. And we're really looking for people who are very committed to changing other people's lives. And I'm interested in people who want to be successful because I want my coaches to be really successful too. So there's kind of a certain personality type that we're looking for too, is committed individuals who really want to make a difference. But people who may already be coaches or therapists. I have 2 professors in my class now. I've got a bunch of coaches who've trained in other modalities. So my coach program does not compete with anyone else's. It's great to add it to other modalities that you have already. It works as in a corporate environment with a specific language that I teach. It works with kids. So at this moment, we have we're just screening people to make sure that they're right for us and that we're right for them. It's an investment that they're making too.
Now, you've said that you already have people that are in the program. So is this something that people can join in, or do they have to wait to the beginning of a year, or how does that work?
every module that I launch has a different subject matter. So each time I complete a module, people are allowed to jump on the program. And then they are mentored by the coaches that have already been through the last module. So what we do is we have a buddy system so that somebody who has a little bit more knowledge works with the new person. So it's just phenomenal the way I'm teaching it and keeping the coaches supported. So right now, people can sign up. April 5th is the next beginning of a 42 day or 6-week intensive. And then if they want to be certified, they also sign up for an in-person event May 17th. It's a weekend in Boston at the Meridian Hotel. And then if they're interested in the full coach program, they have to come to a 5-day training at the end of the year in October. And they have to give me case studies and take an exam, et cetera, because they're really representing me. And then we are investing in them to make sure that they're successful the following year. And then people amongst that group will decide whether they want to teach with me or what they want to do or how they want to create this as part of their business. So this is a very complex coaching community that is all about supporting people to support other people to support other people.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity as well, that there's diversity and people can really make choices to do it in the way that they like and also be connected to you and your greater organization and all the things you're doing. There's some interesting components to this coaching program. You have wealth energetics, divination dynamics, and weight release energetics. And I'd like to get into the part about the weight release first because it was very interesting. You've got lots of videos online about it and you discuss it in terms of where we're believing and how we're feeling as opposed to necessarily just the food intake that we're taking in.
Well, I like to always remind people I was 250 pounds at one time, and I've always struggled with this myself. So, and the training that I'm doing, because I've taught this workshop now to over 2,000 students. And I was actually shocked because before I wrote the book, I was really surprised at how many people actually showed up to my first seminar on this. I thought, you know what, I'm going to put something together. It's Christmas. I always have a hard time around Christmas. Maybe other people do too. And I'd seen over the years that people who feel too much or highly sensitive people have a tendency to have weight issues or issues, especially around the holidays. So I expected 30 people and I ended up with 350 people. So
wow.
like, oh, maybe I should write about this. Anyway, and so the book is coming out next year on Random House, by the way, in March. So I'm training. Oops, that's my dogs. I have tiny Pomeranians. That's why you're hearing the sound of geese. It's actually furry children. I know. Come on, guys. Mommy's on the special radio. Anyway, Sebastian, come here. Savvy, sorry. Here you go. Oops, I apologize. Anyway, this is the noises that you're hearing. Oh, la la, mama's baby. Okay, there you go. Anyway, he's like a toy. That's okay. So back to what we were saying. So I'm training coaches this year. All the coaches this year are trained in this module, by the way, too. So when the book comes out next March, it's coming out worldwide, too. It's been sold to quite a few countries, the UK, Canada, US, Spain, Germany, I don't know where else. So it's all going to come out at the same time. Oh, France, worldwide. So I want coaches to be available for the people when they've read the book. So there'll be a resource page on my Master Intuitive Coach Institute so people will get their clients because everybody's going to come to my website looking for help. And there's only one of me. And I need people to be able to take these as clients. So my training is that for that module, that's in June or July. That one is only online 6 weeks, and then if people want to actually coach, they have to come at the end of the year in October for a 5-day retreat, so that I know that they have to spend an hour with me showing me what they can do, so I know that they're ready to be put on my website because I realize too that I have a great reach and I have the ability to help people be successful too if they are trained in my process.
And you have a responsibility as well because as you're doing this and you have so many followers around the world, you have a responsibility to them to give them the highest quality people as possible as if they were working with you. And so
I've been so lucky though. I got to tell you, I really believe people show up in front of me. I mean, I just pray too. I just pray, see, please send the people that really, really, really want to be able to, want to do this. They want to be successful. They're not afraid that, mind you, we're all a little afraid, but, that they really want to learn something different and unique. And I have a few people who have never coached before, but those people are actually extraordinary once I throw everybody in the deep end together. So, and as I said, I have, a few professors, I've got therapists, I've got coaches. So the people with more experience help the people who don't have as much experience. So that's this great buddy system. And so far I've attracted some pretty astounding people. We've really only turned away 5 or 6 people that we didn't feel were appropriate for us, and we didn't want them to spend the money. So if you're going to invest, you invest in yourself. I'm investing in you, and I want to make sure it's good for everybody. And I just send them to other coaching programs.
That's wonderful. And that book that will be coming out is People Who Feel Too Much?
No, it's Weight Loss for People Who Feel Too Much, and that's coming out next March. I will be holding a seminar this summer, and the coaches in training are going to be working with the people who are on the class. So I'll run a class after all the coaches are trained, and then I'm going to assign coaches to the people on the class. I'm finding that seems to be a really great, that's what I'm doing now with Divination Dynamics, which is this next module is so awesome. It's, I have 3 best-selling Oracle decks, and I've always wanted to be the Oracle Queen. I just actually finished a vampire one for Random House, but anyway. I just know how to make them work. I'm a divination expert. And what does that mean? Well, that means that I know the relationship between the unconscious and synchronicity, and when symbolism, and when you use a system of symbolism, the unconscious or subconscious automatically, it ignites the synchronous harmony of things, and that's why the cards, the I Ching works. Jung studied this, and so I was always fascinated with it. So I'm teaching this particular deck called the Enchanted Map Oracle cards. So it's not learning how to use cards for readings. I'm not teaching people how to do readings. I'm teaching them how to have very deep, interactive coach conversations with the Envision process, as well as learning the deeper meanings of the cards, and so it's an interactive conversation, whereas readings is much more passive. You're telling somebody something. You're just saying, I see this about you, blah, 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 blah. That has its place. But this is more of a really, really powerful dialogue between yourself, the different aspects of your personality, the other person there. So it's very intricate dance, and I'm teaching people, and it's going to be so exciting. I'm so excited. This is the only class that I'm going to let people come on just for the online as well, if they don't want to be coaches at the end of it. And I'm going to assign them my phenomenal coaches in training who are they've already passed their level 1 coach, and they will mentor the people who are just taking the class. So you got lots of personal development there.
Wonderful. And as we're moving through 2012, there's a lot of talk about how we are becoming the newly evolved humans and the multisensory personality and all of that. So this sounds like it's helping us to tap into that multisensory beingness that we are all moving towards. Talk a little bit about being a multisensory human and this step towards the new evolved human.
I'm sorry I rolled my eyes. I thought you were going to, because when anytime anybody's ever said, there's so much talk around 2012, I was like, oh, here we go. I think you said the right thing. I'm like, oh, yes, there is. That's right, we're evolving. So one of the things that I'm really committed to is making the woo-woo mainstream. All right, so that's what I want to do. I want to be the voice of the mainstream woo-woo. So all of us are evolving into this. We're also evolving into a more empathic civilization as well. It's the first time in human history where we are able to collaborate with people on the other side of the world in this less than the speed of time, sound or whatever it is. So this is the first time in human history where the entire world is populated and the noosphere has been activated. I talk a lot about that in my lectures, about the collective unconscious. It's measurable now, and it really affects everybody on the planet, and we are evolving as planetary beings and global citizens. And the multisensory aspect of that, it comes just because it's part of the evolution of us being so connected to one another on a mental level, which is actually part of what stimulated that was the technosphere and the cybersphere, which was because of the internet. Because now we're thinking we have a global mind. It's actually acting as a neurological system of the earth, of us, right? So there's this mind, a greater mind. So with that has to come a greater sense of intuition and a greater sense of connectivity, which is messing a lot of people's heads up, which is why I did weight loss for people who feel too much, because it's overload. A lot of us are having empathy overload, and we're feeling very scattered because of it. But that's that part of that transformative process, or metamorphosis, if you will, that's uncomfortable before the butterfly comes out of its shell. So the processes I teach, what it does is it helps you manage all the blocks and the reactivity to the discomfort of our evolving species, and recognizing too that we're co-creative. So I know you talked about the multisensory piece, but that is very important to the multisensory piece, that we recognize our co-creative abilities. We can only do that by exercising our intuition and recognizing synchronicity. I have a whole class on how to recognize synchronicity and how to be in alignment with that. It's really fascinating what's happening now to everybody.
Oh, that's wonderful. There's another word that's being used a lot right now, and it is the word thrive. And that seems to really resonate with the wealth experience aspect of this coaching program. So talk a little bit about that. There's a lot I say in this, because I start all my classes with something called conscious disruption. So I really want to disrupt the person's belief system. So to really see, like, we pull up the earth. We say, like, what's hidden under the ground? Like, let's dig it out. And many of us are, have ideas about wealth, especially people in the helping professions, or certainly the alternative healing arts, etc., think that we shouldn't make a living. So I challenge that about the money aspect of things, about how money is really a representation of currency and worth, but then the value that we place on ourselves too. So the wealth energetics talks about self-value, self-worth, self-esteem, authenticity. When we're on our authentic path, we are wealthy without having, it's not having net worth. It's a very, very different thing. It's about self-worth, and with self-worth comes a greater net worth, according to our needs, not our wants. And so it's kind of hard to talk about it in such a short time, because it really takes 6 weeks to uncover everything. But this is a really amazing time to be prosperous right now, and then to share that, because as we are more prosperous, we can then share that with others who are less prosperous. That then makes them prosperous, because then it reminds them that miracles are possible, and then their needs get met, and vice versa. And there's a lot of magic to that. So that's the wealth piece and the worth piece that I teach. What have you learned? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What have you?
I got enough coffee.
Well, the one thing that I want people to get to, which comes across every time I interview you, is you also make this fun. That this does not have to be a serious issue, that we can have a good time in the process of coaching people through their stuff, and in the process of discovering our own stuff, and then in creating something new. And I think that's such an important piece, is to have that bit of fun and that bit of humor and that bit of casualness, that whatever is happening right now is okay, and let's just move through it and use it, rather than, and
not deny suffering either. So I am very grateful for my life. I mean, most people that know me at all know I'm in recovery. I'm 26 years clean and sober. I was gang raped when I was 19. So I have quite a story of victimization, if you will, and I don't have that today. And so, but I also know that suffering is part of the journey. So I believe that everything is celebrated, including our darkest moments. So where we can. So I teach people how to speak to the unspeakable. And do it in a safe environment, so that they can be empowered with that, and it can become really good manure for their gardens. Like a lot of shit out there. And it works. And I believe in community, and that's really important too, is to be safe in community. Everything I do is about the sublimation of the ego too, and making peace with the wound. And that's another part of my process too, because it's a 3-part process. We say, where are you, when are you, and who are you listening to? So I have a whole character and a whole process based on a fictional, metaphoric character called the Goblin that really came from Rumpelstiltskin, that fairy tale about the basic gist of it is that if you don't name your goblin, your firstborn will belong to him. So the concept of the wound, and if we deny that, and if we deny what is ugly in ourselves, then it'll just keep coming up as an reactive part of ourselves. So the process that I teach now, and I'm actually training the coaches in, are to be able to help. They do it for themselves first. Everybody goes through their own transformational process, and then they can sit with somebody else and have them go through that too. And it's the self-revelation that comes out of this is amazing, because then nothing stands in your way to being the authentic you. Not everybody is going to want to be rich and famous. I mean, I don't care about being famous anyway, but the point is that what is wealth and what is extraordinary, exceptional for one person is not the same for another. But our goal as intuitive coaches is to provide a short span, by the way, too. In 6 sessions, we should be able to do this for somebody. Is to remove all of the blocks for that person's extraordinary self, so that can shine. It's not to give them anything new, because we believe everything is in there, and we just to show people how to retrieve the lost pieces of themselves as they were wounded along the way, and all of us are. I mean, there's no such thing as well, that's not true. I don't know I don't know any avatars in my neighborhood. Okay, so.
Well,
and I'm not a guru either. So
well, Colette, I want to thank you for being on 1111 Interviews TV. Is there anything else that you want to share before we wind down and offer to the watching audience as to your own journey or what they can receive, or just a piece of wisdom that they can take with them for the day?
Yeah, I think that now is the time to be fearless. Now is the time that we all chose to be here at this period in time. And it's an exciting time to be alive. And remember that you don't have to suffer over your suffering, that you're only a victim once, and that if it isn't me or my coaches, go to somebody. And there's so much help to be had now. Allow yourself space to give birth to the new you. This is what 2012 is all about. It's leaving the old structure behind of the you that doesn't serve anymore. You are no longer the person who created the life that you have today 5 years ago. You're somebody brand new. So take that essence of who you are and let it shine in the world. Life is short. When you look back on your deathbed, how would you have liked to have spent your personal currency, which is you and your wisdom? And love yourself and have some fun. Laugh your ass off.
Oh, thank you so much, Colette. That is just amazing, just beautiful. Again, my guest today has been Colette Baron-Reid, and she is the author of numerous books, including The Map, which you must read if you have not, in addition to Messages from Spirit and Remembering the Future. All of them have been bestsellers, in addition to some other creative projects that she has, some CDs. You can find out more about her and this wonderful new program, which is the Master Intuitive Coach Institute that she has begun. Just click on the link below in the paragraph and you can go directly there and get all of that information. Who are you, when are you, and who are you listening to? These are all part of the big questions that you get to answer when you go through the many modules of the Master Intuitive Coach Institute, which includes wealth energetics, divination dynamics, and weight release energetics. It is always an honor and a pleasure to have Colette Baron-Reid, and I am thrilled to have had this conversation. If this sounds like it's something for you, put in your application and see if it's something that you'd like to do, and they'll be in touch with you if you've been approved for that process. Until next time, I'm Simran Singh. Be well.